There's a moment in every man's life when he sees something so clearly that he can never unsee it again. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday evening. Nothing special about the day. No dramatic music. No warning signs flashing above her head. Just a quiet kitchen, a phone call from my mother, and 4 words from my wife that changed everything, I thought. I knew about the woman I had chosen to build my life with. But before I get to that, let me tell you who I was before all of this. My name is Daniel. I'm 36 years old. I spent the better part of a decade being what I believed a good husband looked like. I worked hard. I came home on time. I didn't chase anything that wasn't mine. I took pride in being the kind of man who kept his word to his wife, to his family, to himself. My mother raised me alone. My father left when I was 9, and she never once complained about it. She worked double shifts at a laundry service for 15 years, so I could finish school with new shoes and a full stomach. That woman gave me everything she had and kept nothing for herself. When I met Sarah, I was 28. She was sharp, beautiful, and she had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. I fell fast. We dated for 2 years, got married, moved into a house I worked overtime to afford, and I genuinely thought, that I had built something real. My mother lived 40 minutes away. She was aging. Her knees had started giving her trouble, and she had recently been diagnosed with early-stage arthritis. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to make daily tasks difficult. She needed small help. Grocery runs, doctor visits, company. I told Sarah all of this before we got married. She nodded and said, "Of course. Family comes first." I held on to those words longer than I should have, because in the years that followed, I started to notice small things. The way Sarah's tone shifted when my mother called. The way she would suddenly become busy whenever I mentioned a visit. The quiet eye rolls she thought I didn't catch. I told myself I was imagining it, that she was just tired, that marriage takes adjustment. Looking back now, I wasn't imagining anything. I was just a man who trusted too much and questioned too little. And then came that Tuesday evening, and everything I had been quietly excusing finally had a face. My mother called me one afternoon while I was at work. Her voice was softer than usual. She told me her arthritis had flared up badly. She couldn't grip her cooking pots, and even lifting a kettle caused pain. At first, she tried to laugh it off, but then she admitted something that stopped me cold. She had been eating crackers and drinking tea for 2 days because she couldn't manage the stove. I felt my chest tighten. I immediately called my wife, Sarah. I kept it simple. I told her my mother was struggling and asked if she could stop by after work to help, cook a warm meal, and stay for an hour. There was a pause. Then Sarah said, "Daniel, I'm not her caretaker." No concern, no sympathy, no offer to find another solution, just a line drawn in the sand. I told her we'd talk when I got home and ended the call. Sitting in my car afterward, I wasn't angry. I felt clarity, the kind that comes when you've spent years making excuses for someone and suddenly can't anymore. That evening, I asked Sarah why she felt that way. She said I prioritized my mother over our marriage. She talked about the sacrifices she'd made and said she never signed up to care for someone else's parent. I listened without interrupting. Something inside me broke free. Not my love, my illusion. I finally saw the truth. Sarah didn't see it that way. Over the following weeks, I paid closer attention. I noticed she would do anything for her own family. She drove her sister across town, rearranged schedules for her mother, organized family gatherings, and showed up whenever they needed her. But when it came to my family, everything was too much, too inconvenient, too complicated, too far, too not her problem. I had spent years convincing myself that would change. It never did. One night I drove to my mother's house. I cooked dinner, sat with her, and listened to stories I'd heard many times before. Eventually she fell asleep in her chair. Before leaving, I covered her with a blanket. On the drive home, I made a decision, not out of anger, not out of revenge, out of self-respect. I stopped trying to explain my family's value to someone who had already decided they weren't worth her time. After that, I changed. I focused on my work. I visited my mother every week. I stopped asking permission and stopped offering explanations. Most importantly, I became honest with myself about what I actually had versus what I wished I had. Sarah noticed. She became warmer, more attentive, and more affectionate. She tried to close the distance she suddenly felt growing between us. But it was too late. I had already seen what happened when compassion became inconvenient. And once you've seen that, surface-level warmth doesn't feel like love. It feels like a performance, a reaction to consequences. A light switched on only after someone notices the room has gone dark. And no matter how bright that light becomes, you never forget who left you sitting in the cold. 6 months later, I filed for separation. There was no blow-up, no dramatic confrontation, no moment where I looked her in the eyes and delivered a speech. I simply sat across from her at the kitchen table, told her that I had spent a long time trying to fit my life into a space too small for it, and that I was choosing to stop. She cried. She apologized. She said she hadn't realized how much things had drifted, and I believed her. I think in her own way she meant it. But belief and action are different things. She had shown me her actions, clearly and consistently, for years. An apology doesn't erase a pattern. It just names it. My mother never knew the full story. I never told her what Sarah said that day. Some things a son protects his mother from. She just knew that I started showing up more, and that was enough for her. 2 years after the separation, I had rebuilt quietly. I moved into a smaller place, but it felt bigger because it was mine, fully mine. I worked on myself, read more, slept better, started a small investment account I had been putting off for years because we always had other priorities. I didn't hate Sarah. I genuinely didn't. Hate takes energy I decided to spend elsewhere. What I felt eventually was gratitude, because her heartless reply on that Tuesday afternoon cracked open something I had been avoiding for a long time, the truth about what I had accepted and why. I had confused patience with tolerance. I had confused keeping the peace with losing my self-respect, one small compromise at a time. The man I became after that marriage ended was sharper, quieter, and much harder to fool. Not cynical, just clear. There's a difference. If you're watching this and something in this story feels familiar. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Only you know your situation. But I'll say this. Pay attention to how a person treats the people you love most. Not on the good days. Not when they're trying to impress you. On the ordinary days when no one's watching and nothing's on the line. That's where the truth lives. My mother is doing better now. Her arthritis is managed. Every Sunday I drive 40 minutes, cook something simple, and we watch the evening news together. She still falls asleep in her chair, and in those quiet moments, I'm reminded of something I almost traded away without realizing it. The people who shaped you deserve to be protected, and so do you. If this story hits something deep inside you, something you felt but never had the words for, hit that like button. And if you believe every man deserves to hear stories like this one, subscribe, because there's more where this came from. I'll see you in the next one.